Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. The trough of low pressure starts affecting the Sultanate with varied intensity rains on a number of wilayas and governorates. And the UN Security General urges all countries to implement an arms embargo against Libya to de-escalate the current fighting and restore stability in the country. Those are the headlines, and now for the news in detail. The effects of the trough of low pressure started on the Sultanate, where a number of wilayas witnessed moderate to heavy rain, which led some wadis and their tributaries to overflow. Rains with varied intensity fell in the wilayas of Al Hamra, Sama'il and Nizwa in the governorates of Dakhliya, and in the wilaya of Sur in the governorate of Sharqiya, which led some wadis to overflow. The latest analysis of National Multi-Hazard Early Warning Centre shows that the effects of the trough of low pressure will continue on the Sultanate starting from today, Saturday, until next Wednesday. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies will prevail over most governorates, with chances of varied intensity rainfalls, occasionally thunderous and accompanied by active winds and hail. Heavy rains are expected over the Hajar Mountains and its nearby wilayas, where the quantities of rain will be between 30 to 75 millimetres. Seas will be moderate to rough along most of the coast of the Sultanate, with a maximum wave height of 1.5 metres and is expected to rise to 2.5 metres. The Public Authority for Civil Aviation advises the public to take precautions during rain and not to cross flowing wadis, and check the sea state before sailing and follow the latest weather bulletins. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is urging all countries to implement an arms embargo against Libya, saying preventing the proliferation of weapons is important to de-escalate the current fighting and restore stability in the country. He expressed deep concern in a report to the Security Council circulated yesterday that the current military operations in Libya are reportedly being reinforced by the transfer of arms into the country, including by sea. Guterres was reporting specifically on implementation of a resolution last June authorizing the European Union's maritime force to enforce the arms embargo on the high seas off the coast of Libya. He noted that the EU countries in March extended the mandate of the naval mission, but took the unusual step of restricting its operations by refusing to allow it to deploy any ships. Syria said its air defences thwarted projectiles and drones fired by militant groups. Militant groups fired projectiles at the Hamamim air base, killing one person and wounding others. Earlier, the official news agency Sana reported that the Syrian air defense batteries intercepted projectiles coming from Israel and downed a number of them. A report described the projectiles as hostile targets, which were fired towards the province of Kuni Tara, near the Golan Heights, part of which are annexed by Israel. Sana reported a loud explosion around the capital Damascus, and the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 3 explosions shook southwest Damascus yesterday. North Korea has asked the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to deal with the illegal seizure of one of its cargo ships by the United States. The North Korean ambassador to the United Nations said in a letter sent to Guterres yesterday that this act of dispossession has clearly indicated that the United States is indeed a gangster country that does not care at all about the international laws. Pyongyang's protest to the United Nations over the seizure comes amid mounting tensions since a second summit between North Korea leader Kim Jong-un and US President Donald Trump, aimed at bringing about the denuclearization of North, broke down in Hanoi in February. The letter also called for urgent measures by Guterres and claimed that Washington infringed the North's sovereignty and violated UN charters. Still to come in our news bulletin. During Ramadan night, citizens in the Wilaya of Al-Kubura gather in a community meeting reflecting social solidarity. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman Television. The Royal Air Force of Oman concluded the activities of the Cultural Competition 2019. During the ceremony, those who excelled in memorizing the Holy Quran competition were honoured and prizes were distributed to the bases that won advanced places in the competitions. The ceremony was presided over by Air Vice Marshal Matar bin Ali Al Badani, Commander of the Royal Air Force of Oman. During the nights of Ramadan in Sarahat village in the Wilaya of Al-Kubura, the youth and the elderly gather after performing Taraweeh prayer in the community, meeting to have some coffee and to get acquainted. This custom is practiced in all nights and people get a break during weekends to give a turn for their families. People at the village usually rotate the venue of the meeting to give a chance to every neighbour to engage in this community visit. Usually for each wilaya there is a distinct custom that makes it unique. The children in wilaya of Ibri have become accustomed before Maghrib prayer call to gather near the mosque. After the prayer call, the children walk chanting Athun Athun to alert whoever is fasting that the time to break their fast has come. According to one of Ibra residents, this custom is very old, but it perished in the modern days. The villagers in the wilaya of Ibra, however, sought to revive the customs and taught their children the chanting. Here are the Ramadan times for tomorrow. Fajr prayer at 4 a.m. and Maghrib prayers at 6:48 p.m. Now for the general weather forecast around the Sultanate. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies will prevail over most of the governorates, with chances of varied intensity rains, occasionally thunderous and accompanied by active winds and hail. Low clouds are expected over the Arabian Sea. Winds will be south to southeasterly light to moderate, and seas will be slight to moderate with a maximum wave height of 1.5 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman Television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. The trough of low pressure starts affecting the Sultanate with varied intensity rains on a number of wilayas and governorates. And the UN Security General urges all countries to implement an arms embargo against Libya to de-escalate the current fighting and restore stability in the country. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the newsrooms and the studio, it's good night.